Dialogue. My name is Samjit Bari, I'll be your host for today. I'm here with Lynn Harrison from the First Unitarian Congregation of Toronto.
Hi Tamjit.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Well, I'm a candidate for Unitarian ministry, and I'm working as the intern minister at Toronto First, is what we call it, First Unitarian Congregation, and I'm a member of neighborhood congregation in the East End in Toronto as well.
That's very interesting. How did you find out about Unitarian Universalism, also known as UU?
Well, you know what? I was looking for a faith community that was really open enough to welcome all of my questions, and to also that would recognize that I find meaning in so many different places, like not just my Christian upbringing, but also I'm inspired by Buddhism, I'm inspired by creativity, I'm inspired by many things. So when I discovered Unitarianism, I realized this was a place where I could be at home.
Right. How does UU differ from other types of religions?
Well, many religions really are built on a set of beliefs, or sometimes they call it a doctrine, where people agree that they believe in a certain set of events or the teachings of one particular wisdom teacher. But Unitarians actually are guided by a set of principles, and most of these are ethical principles. So the first few are, we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every person, and we affirm and promote justice, equity, and compassion in human relations, and also protect the interconnected web of existence. Those are just three, and there are seven. So that's a completely different thing. It's not really subscribing to a set of beliefs, but more agreeing to live in a certain way and bringing together people from a variety of faith backgrounds.
So is it a type of Christianity?
It used to be. So it grew out of Christian roots. It grew out of Unitarianism from Eastern Europe, which goes back about 400 years, Unitarians and 400 years ago. A long time ago. And so the word Unitarian, it came from people who were trying to find, they couldn't find support for the idea of the Trinity in the way they were reading Christian scriptures. So they were questioning. And that's another very important part of Unitarianism, just that we use our reason and our intellect to always question and always be looking at the teachings that are in front of us. So that was the beginning of Unitarianism in Eastern Europe, and of course people were heretics when they said that, so it was pretty dangerous to do that. So freedom of understanding is a really important part of our faith. And then the Universalists, they were a Christian denomination who believed that God would save everyone and that no one should be excluded from that. So again, you get that sense of equity and justice for all people. So those two denominations came together, and UU, as we call it today, was born.
I know you mentioned this, but where was UU started?
You know, it comes from there. It's hard to trace all of the history. Eastern Europe is really a really important part of the origin, but also in the United States, especially in New England, that was where also Unitarian Universalism really grew and developed through people like Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau and other thinkers like that. So there's a lot of history, and I'm still learning it myself, and it would take a while, but it's fascinating actually to learn more about it.
Can you tell us a little bit about the location at which you work at?
Sure. So First Unitarian Congregation of Toronto is located at Avenue Road in St. Clair. It's actually 150 years old, the congregation. Wow. So it originally was actually right downtown, like at Church and Jarvis. So very much in the center of growing Toronto 150 years ago. But now it's up at St. Clair. Neighborhood congregation is on Hiawatha Road near Girard, and that's a relatively new congregation. It's been around for 12 years. And then there are some other congregations as well. There's one in Don Mills, there's one in Mississauga, and many Unitarians kind of scattered throughout the city, even if they're not officially connected to a congregation.
So how does UU tie in with social justice? Mentioning it earlier.
That's a great question. because of the emphasis on those principles of the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice and equity and compassion, also the importance of conscience and democratic process, all of those things really tie in with social justice. So a lot of people will come to Unitarian communities already very involved with social justice issues in one way or another. And then within the congregations themselves, there'll be many social projects that are going on, social justice projects.
Does the UU have any correlations with the LGBT community?
Unitarians were among the first to marry same-sex couples in Canada, and were influential in having that law changed so that can happen now. And we really feel it's important to have a fully inclusive community, which includes, LGBTQ, two-spirited, the full range of expression. It's just sort of woven into the fabric, I think, of Unitarian Universalism, and several weeks ago now, a large delegation of UUs marched in the World Pride Parade with a very large rainbow flag, and we're very, very proud to do so.
So what other types of social justice issues does UU help to support? That was pretty good.
It's funny because, as you know, social justice covers such a broad range of things. At first, there are 8 projects that are kind of officially part of the congregation right now being supported. Amnesty International, Dying with Dignity, Aboriginal Awareness, there's an environmental team, a green team. And also individuals within the congregation are very involved in particular issues. For example, there's a woman a few weeks from now, a 90-year-old woman will be giving a short talk about her history in the peace movement, because she's been active as a peace activist and disarmament activist all her life, which is fantastic. Also at Neighborhood Congregation, they were very involved in stopping the mega quarry, which was up at Melanchthon, being proposed for Melanchthon Township. Many of those members went and marched and were in the news and were instrumental in stopping that. So it is interesting. There's such a broad range, and many people bring issues that they know more about. For example, we have a man who has a developmental disability who's participating in our congregation, and through him and his mother, we're now doing more work to support, again, differently abled people in the community as well.
So UU seems very diverse. Could you tell us a little bit about why?
You're right, and one of the reasons is because we draw wisdom from so many sources. So there isn't just one holy book. We recognize that there is wisdom from all of the world religions, and also from secular sources such as music and poetry and art, which might not be called formally religious. We have atheists in our congregation. That is, people who don't believe in a God per se, but who want to have a meaningful, purposeful life and want to be in community with people who want to make the world a better place. So as a result, as you can imagine, there's a lot of really diverse opinion, and sometimes there are some debates that happen. But because we're guided by our principles to respect each other's beliefs and to be open, some really good dialogue comes out of that. So, when you're talking about interfaith dialogue, that's something that's very important to Unitarians. We really believe in that.
Can you tell us a little bit about the principles? I'm very interested.
Sure. In addition to the ones that I was mentioning, let's see, we've also got, I almost forgot this one, huge. We affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. So that is, we are free to explore what we find, what nurtures our spirit and what helps us grow spiritually, and at the same time we use our reason and our intellect to kind of test that, to always look at, are we being responsible, and are we behaving in a responsible way while we're following this particular idea. So that's a huge one. I also think the respect for the interconnected web of all existence is really important, and that was relatively recently added, about 40 years ago. Or maybe less, now that I think about it.
So it's still developing.
That's a very important thing. So Unitarians believe that truth is not sealed. It's always emerging and evolving, and we're always learning more. So every once in a while, the Unitarian Universalist Association will, revisit those principles and see if they still hold up, if they need any revising.
So could you tell me how youth is involved with UU?
There are youth in all of our congregations, and they're very welcome. And in fact, up at First, the 20 and 30 somethings and younger is the fastest growing group within the congregation, which is great. There's also a fantastic sexuality and relationships program called Our Whole Lives, which is important for a lot of youth coming into the congregations. There's also something called the Church of the Larger Fellowship, which is online. So if you search Unitarian Universalism, you'll probably find that. And it's basically a church on the internet that also, again, welcomes all of this reflection, all of these questions.
So it's embracing technology.
Exactly, that's right.
All right. Thank you so much, Lynn, for being here and teaching us about UU.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
All right. Thanks for watching. I'm Tamjid Bari, and this has been Interfaith Dialogue.